So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, of course, today is the second part of our mock offseason version 2. Yesterday, we went over the coaching changes with the new offensive coordinator in Deuce Staley and the new running backs coach in Mike Hart, the former running backs coach, I guess right now, the current running backs coach for the Michigan Wolverines. Both of those guys, I think, will help the Detroit Lions offense excel in 2022. And with that being said, and with all the coaching staff being out of the way, and with the coaching staff being set, now we can move on to the second part of the offseason, which is re-signing current players and keeping around the talent that is going to help the Lions be successful next year and beyond. So with that being said, without any further ado, let's start off with our first player to re-sign, and that player is Jalen Reagor. Now, in my opinion, Jalen Reagor is one of the biggest free agency players that we have to re-sign this season. He's an unrestricted free agent, meaning if they don't re-sign him by a certain date, he will be open to sign with any NFL team that he wants without the say of the Detroit Lions. And I think Jalen Reagor absolutely made his case to stay on this roster last season. He played very well late down the stretch, didn't get a lot of time early in the season, but due to injuries and due to the fact that he just had to step up and make some plays, Jalen Reagor played incredibly well. In the 2021 season, Jalen Reagor totaled 82 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss, a quarterback hit, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, and 4 passes defended. He's only 26 years old at the linebacker position, which is pretty young considering a lot of the older linebackers in the NFL and a lot of the playmaking linebackers even are a lot older than Jalen Reagor. Maybe he's on the younger side of linebackers for the NFL play. He kind of earned his spot last year, didn't get a starting role early in the season, but due to injuries, due to Alex Anzaloni missing time, due to maybe Derek Barnes not developing properly, due to the release of Jamie Collins, Jalen Reagor was thrown into a starting role and was thrown into a much larger defensive role than he thought he would have and that a lot of people thought he would have at the beginning of the season, and he absolutely made the most of it. And I think re-signing him for 3 years, obviously a special teams captain, a guy that the players follow, a guy that the players respect and follow onto the football field every single week, a guy that proved that if he needs to step up, he can be a decent quality starter. If you have that guy on your linebacking core, even if he's not a full-time starter, even if it's not the biggest contract in the world, having a guy of Jalen Reagor's talents is going to only bring benefits to Detroit. Now, the next player that I wanted to mention and the next player that I want to re-sign as the Detroit Lions general manager in this mock offseason is Charles Harris. Now, Charles Harris came in a year ago as a player that didn't reach expectations with his former team. He was a former first-round pick by the Miami Dolphins, spent some time with the Atlanta Falcons, and after multiple subpar seasons and never quite living up to the expectations of a first-round pass rusher, he came to Detroit. He came to Detroit on a very low, very minimal 1-year contract to see if we could get the talent out of the former first-round pick that he displayed at the collegiate level. And with that being the case, Charles Harris absolutely delivered on that. Charles Harris led the Detroit Lions in sacks this season and was arguably the Detroit Lions' best pass rusher all season, and inarguably was the Lions' most consistent pass rusher all season long. Played in all 17 games for the Detroit Lions, totaling 65 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 16 quarterback hits, 7.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Now, Charles Harris was drafted in the 2017 NFL draft, meaning he's only 27 years old as well. A pretty young player, a player right in the middle of his physical prime in the NFL, and just started and just began to find his groove in the NFL. Now, when you go on Spot Track and you go on Over the Cap, the estimated value or the estimated yearly value of Charles Harris is somewhere between $7 to $8 million, and that will likely be our most expensive free agent re-signing of the offseason. And a lot of people are going to say, say, why are you going to pay this guy $8 million a season for 1 year of production? And the way I look at this is, if you're going to get rid of Trey Flowers, which after June 1st, you'd free up over $17 million of cap space with very minimal cap debt, and they're with very minimal dead cap, so you're getting rid of a huge contract anyway. You're taking not even half of that contract, right? You're taking 7 to 8 million of that 17 million that you free up, and you're giving it to Charles Harris for more production, more consistency, and better health than Trey Flowers. That is basically getting 10 million extra dollars free and basically getting a better player for $10 million cheaper. It makes way too much sense for the Detroit Lions, and I'm going to spoil it now. I think the Detroit Lions are going to get rid of Trey Flowers at the deadline, or at the league's new year. I just think that, he's not a guy that they brought in. He's not really a guy that performed last year for the Detroit Lions. He didn't help the Detroit Lions win any football games, didn't put the quarterback under pressure all that often. He's not a Dan Campbell guy. I think Dan Campbell's trying to get rid of as many Patriots players as possible, try to get rid of that Matt Patricia culture as fast as possible. Now, last year, a lot of those steps were, Desmond Trufant, and earlier in the season, it was Jamie Collins. The last step of that is to get rid of the last Patriots player from the Matt Patricia era, and that would be Trey Flowers. And in doing so, would free up a lot of cap space for Brad Holmes, John Dorsey, and the rest of that front office to work with to bring in some much more needed and much better talents for the Detroit Lions defense. So with that being said, Charles Harris, I would re-sign him to a 2-year deal. Wouldn't give him anything long-term. When this contract is over, he will be at 29 years old. 2 years is long enough to see if he's really the real deal for Detroit, and 2 years would expire again when he is 29 years old, and would leave the Detroit Lions with the decision if they want to re-sign him again for a couple more years, or they kind of, after 2 years, if it's not working out, they're not stuck with a, player with a decent cap hit for too long of a time. Now, with that being said, the third player that I think the Lions should target in free agency or in the re-signing process is Alex Anzaloni, the linebacker. Now, Alex Anzaloni was the captain of the defense for the Detroit Lions. He was the heart and soul of that Detroit Lions defense. Got the captain's patch early in training camp and showed exactly why he deserved it as early as week 1. He played really well, tackled well for the Detroit Lions, was pretty good in pass coverage, was okay as a pass rusher, played every single role you could ever expect a linebacker to do. Was a pass rusher, was in pass coverage, was, a run defender, was a guy that got to the edge, was a guy that shot through gaps in the middle. He played every role for the Detroit Lions while being the leader and while being the, just the voice on that Detroit Lions defense. Alex Anzaloni, a season ago total, 78 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 7 passes defended, and an interception. He was, again, just all over the field making plays, but I think the biggest reason you bring back Alex Anzaloni is that leadership ability. We talked about him before, so I don't want to dwell on him too long. Another guy that we've talked about previously is Josh Reynolds, a guy that came in late off of waiver wires from the Tennessee Titans in the middle of the NFL season, and immediately, as soon as Josh Reynolds hit the field for the Lions, Jared Goff looked much more comfortable, much more confident in his wide receivers, and you could tell from the first 10 games of the season to the last 5 games that Jared Goff played this year, he looked really different. I mean, as soon as Josh Reynolds found his stride in Detroit, as soon as he earned a starting role, Jared Goff looked so much better, and I think you keep that comfortability there. I think you keep that guy that Jared Goff has confidence, and you keep him in the building, and even if he doesn't start next year necessarily, even if he's not the biggest wide receiver, and even if he's not Jared Goff's number 1 target, he's a guy that keeps your quarterback comfortable and makes your quarterback a little calmer and a little more composed in the pocket, because he knows if nothing else, he can give the ball to number 8, and number 8's going to have an opportunity to go make a big play. So Josh Reynolds, I'd give 1 more year. He's a little bit on the older side of wide receivers at 27 years old. Not super old. Obviously, wide receivers play well into their 30s at this point, but he's a little bit older, not necessarily a young wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. I think 1 year to really see what a full season with the Lions would look like is a really smart thing for Josh Reynolds. He's not going to cost a lot of money, but he's just that security blanket, that safety guy for Jared Goff to look to when he needs it the most. So that being said, the next player that I wanted to talk about is Evan Brown. Again, the backup center that stepped in and played significant time this year in the absence of Frank Ragnow. He's only 25 years old, played really well in a starting role, and because of that, I would give him a 3-year deal. Whatever he asks for, I mean, obviously don't overpay him, but I mean, he's a quality center, arguably the best backup center in the entirety of the NFL. I mean, you get rid of the best center in the NFL in Frank Ragnow, you lose him to injury after week 5, you're expecting your offensive line play to drop, especially at that center position, but realistically, Evan Brown stepped in pretty seamlessly. I mean, he shut out Aaron Donald, allowed 0 pressures, 0 sacks, and 0 quarterback hits in his first start against the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, you can't really start your career much better than that. You can't really start your starting tenure much better than shutting out Aaron Donald and the Rams, and that's exactly what he did. He's one of the better backup centers in the NFL, and one of the best ways to build up your franchise is to build the depth of your franchise. So I think Evan Brown, he's your best backup offensive lineman. He's a guy that you have to keep around for depth. Could you find another backup center? Probably. Are you going to find one as good as Evan Brown? Probably not. It won't be too expensive. Just sign him to a 3-year contract. Keep him here long term just in case something happens. Jason Kabinda, another player that's kind of a no-brainer, 25 years old, signed him to a 2-year contract. He's a very Dan Campbell guy, a guy that switched positions in the NFL just to stay in the NFL. He's a guy that just loves playing football, plays with a lot of heart, plays with a lot of passion. He's a very Dan Campbell guy, and he's productive on the field and does a really good job when we need him the most. So I keep Jason Kabinda on the roster as the starting fullback and the only fullback on the roster. Tracy Walker, another guy that is not super old, only 26 years old. I would sign him to a 2-year contract as well. I'd like to see him another year under Aaron Glenn, see how much he develops, see how far he can go from year 1 to year 2. He was a big playmaker early in his career with Detroit. 2 years in a row, kind of had, not a down year necessarily, but a year that he didn't force the turnovers, didn't make the big plays. He ended actually the last defensive play of the year with an interception on Jordan Love, which was really good to see. He's graded as a top 10 safety in the NFL right now. He doesn't force turnovers, but he's very, very rarely tested, and when he is, there's very rarely big plays made against Tracy Walker. I really, really like him in the Detroit Lions secondary, and if the Lions can keep anybody in this free agency class, I really hope that it's Tracy Walker and Charles Harris, because I think those are 2 pieces that we can build around for the future. I think those are 2 guys that can play in big moments for the Detroit Lions. Now, the next player that I think we should re-sign is Jack Fox. Jack Fox is a restricted free agent at the end of this season, or going into this offseason, meaning other teams can offer him a contract and can offer him a spot, and the Lions would have to match or surpass that offer from another team. I'm pretty sure the Lions will keep around Jack Fox. He seems like a very core player in the special teams, the best punter statistically in the NFL, and statistically the best punter of all time through his first 2 seasons. And I'm not saying like overall, I'm saying through their first 2 seasons compared to every other punter in the NFL, Jack Fox is more efficient than all of them. And then the last re-signing of today is, again, Scott Daly, somebody we talked about before. Give him a 5-year contract. He's only 27 years old. Muehlbach played till he was 42. You have a long-term long snapper, a really good long-term long snapper, and a guy that could just be that reliable veteran in Detroit for a very, very long time. Now today, I also want to talk about some of the guys that we didn't re-sign, because obviously we went through this list, and this is really the last part of the offseason, the only part of this mock offseason that is going to be similar to last time's, right? I tried to change it up a little bit. Obviously, Charles Harris is coming back where he didn't last time. You have a couple other guys here and there that are coming back that they didn't last time, and of course the contracts are going to be different, and some of the years I wanted to change, but we didn't really talk about some of the guys that we didn't bring back last time we did this mock offseason. And really the big ones are David Blau and Tim Boyle, the backup quarterbacks. And for me, they just didn't show enough this year. Tim Boyle especially did not show that he was an NFL caliber quarterback. He didn't show me that he could win any games, even in the games that his defense played their hearts out, even in the games that their defense played phenomenally and gave him an opportunity with not even a full field to go, with, like 30, 40 yards to drive, to win the football game. All they had to do was score a touchdown. And Tim Boyle showed me that he's just simply incapable of leading this offense to success. He's just simply incapable of being a starting NFL quarterback. And honestly, I think there's better quality backup quarterbacks out there. David Blau, I really like. I think in the small sample size that we have, he's been pretty good. But this coaching staff simply doesn't trust him. And I trust Dan Campbell. If he doesn't think that David Blau is the guy, then I trust him. I don't think David Blau is the guy for the future. Maybe he's a decent backup quarterback, but again, I think you can do better when you are looking in free agency for that next backup guy. And then the other player that I really wanted to talk about was Khalif Raymond. Khalif Raymond is a wide receiver that was kind of one of the more hyped up free agency signings of this offseason, a guy that was a kick and punt returner, a guy that was our speed, our deep threat in the receiving core. And honestly, I think you can replace him. He wasn't all that productive with the Lions Lions. Yes, he was a decent kick and punt returner, but I think you can replace that in free agency. Yes, he was a decent deep threat, but I don't even think he had a real deep shot. I don't even really think he had a big play down the field, and I don't really count the one in week 17 because, I mean, yeah, he had a 75-yard receiving touchdown, but at the same time, like, it was kind of a trick play, and he caught it and ran, I think, 40 or 50 yards after he caught the football. So, yeah, he's a big play guy, or, like, yeah, he has the potential to be a big play guy. Yeah, he's fast, but I think that his production and his role is very replaceable in the draft. I think you can get that speedy wide receiver to get 2-3 targets a game in the 6th, 7th round of the NFL draft for pennies instead of dollars where you'd pay with Khalif Raymond. I think as far as kick and punt return, there are other guys on this roster that can do that. And there are a lot of guys in free agency, and especially in undrafted free agency, every single year that are kick and punt return specialists. Guys that maybe don't fit a specific position very well, but at the end of the day, you put them on special teams and they are going to thrive. I'm talking about like a Deontay Harris, the wide receiver, number 11 for the New Orleans Saints, who's just a kick return monster. I'm talking about Jamal Agnew, right? A guy that the Lions drafted in the 5th round, got big money from the Jacksonville Jaguars to really just simply go be their kick and punt returner for special teams. You can find kick and punt returners in the late rounds, if not even undrafted free agency in the NFL draft. So I'm not worried about the kick and punt return job, not even that he returned one anyway. At the same time, I think his production is replaceable. So with all that being said, those are the re-signings for this offseason. We have Jalen Reagor, Charles Harris, Alex Anzaloni, Josh Reynolds, Evan Brown, Jason Kabinda, Tracy Walker, Jack Fox, and Scott Daly. Those are the guys coming back. Those are the guys that I think are going to play key roles. I think almost all of them are going to be starters. Obviously, Anzaloni and Jalen Reagor will split time at the linebacker position. Josh Reynolds, I think, will start as a boundary wide receiver. Charles Harris will start, or at least will get significant time behind Romeo Okwara. And if we draft somebody at the 2nd overall spot, we'll get significant time alongside those players. Evan Brown is your backup, won't be a starter, but is super high quality. Tracy Walker's a starter, Scott Daly's a starter, and Jack Fox is a starter. So you re-sign your starters, you re-sign the guys that make plays for you, and you move into the offseason without spending too much money in re-signings, and maybe make a splash or two tomorrow. So with all that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. If you're still here, I really, really appreciate it because it helps the videos a ton. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. I'll see you all tomorrow with the actual free agency class, and it's one that you definitely don't want to miss because it's going to be a lot of names that you know. It's going to be a lot of exciting players and players that I think can bring a real impact to the Detroit Lions. So you're not going to want to miss it. You guys are going to like the video tomorrow. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions!